Welcome to the Higher Power Podcast, where your safe zone for discovering your true self is created. We are your hosts, Frank Sieben and Jill Humphreys. On this episode, we will be covering depression in entrepreneurship. And by the way, this is episode 7 already.
Tonight, Frank, our subject on this episode is something that we've got to address, I feel.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah, because basically we cannot avoid sometimes of stress that we discussed previously, but this time we're going towards the side of the depression.
Yeah.
And depression is something that affects us all, but believe it or not, I've done some research, as have you, to this subject that we're sharing, and the Business Insider recently published a great article about the depression epidemic in the startup community. And according to the article, only 7% of the general population report suffering from depression. But a whopping 30% of founders report dealing with its effects. Now, I personally, like you, we're both sharing what we were doing our research on, but that statistic alone is absolutely staggering, but entirely believable. Because when you think about it, entrepreneurship is deeply a personal journey. No two people are going to experience this journey the same way. And it's incredibly difficult to separate your identity from the business that you're trying to create. So soon, the business setbacks, of which there are many, as we all know, when you're starting up by yourself, but they seem like personal setbacks, and that is where depression can quickly take root. The key is always to keep things in perspective. Life, like business, is a journey full of ups and downs, twists and turns, highs and lows. But when you're talking to an entrepreneur going through a rough patch, you have to encourage them really to almost go back to school. Because most of us, there were moments in our school lives, our youth, our childhood, that seemed to be momentarily important, but they kind of seemed a bit childish. But at the same time, the pain and anxiety that you experienced was real and raw. However, the more distance you gain from the situation, the less pain it becomes. So while the problems that you're facing right here and right now may seem insurmountable, it's so important to realize these too shall pass and fade in time. But as we know, Frank, you and I personally, you with your business and me with mine, we don't live in the moment. We're kind of living in, oh my goodness, this is going to be how it is forever. This is going to be so heavy, and it's making me feel really low, really down, and I don't know if I can see tomorrow in with this. It's living in the now and keeping things in perspective.
What I think is important to mention here is that this depression in entrepreneurship is a huge taboo theme, because entrepreneurs are always regarded as successful and managing their lives. But under the surface and secretly, all these entrepreneurs are suffering before they get successful, or even why they are successful. They have to deal with struggle and anxieties. And it is a taboo theme, because our society has taught us not to show our vulnerability. And even the theme, which is going through entrepreneurship at the moment, fake it till you make it, is a topic here. We want to show you a different approach here, because this weakness and this vulnerability can actually be and will be your biggest growth time.
Yeah, I love that, what you just said there. We've got to get raw and real with the fact that building a business is something that you have to wear so many hats. You have to be so many things. You have to almost be like a chameleon to fit in some places, and then you've got to stand out in others.
Yeah.
So you've got the weird divide really of being recognized, but you want to be recognized for authentic things.
Yeah.
And one of them can also be the way that you deal with your stress, and you recognize a depression coming in, and you also let the world know that, hey, I'm going through a few struggles. For one example, there was an astrologer called David Palmer, and he goes under the entitlement of the Leo King. He is a Leo, and as you know, I love astrology. And we've got a lot of people that are doing business startups that we actually know in this field. And late one night, I just turned onto my YouTube channel, and there was David, and he was talking about not coping. He'd come to a certain stage in life where he got it all. He fought off drugs and alcoholism. He'd been there, done it, and he wanted to better himself, and he just started a startup, and he grew into the environment that he so loves, which is astrology. And everything was happening for him because he was giving out this value, he was giving out this service, but he was afraid to delegate, which I think we spoke about a particular person before the podcast. And so he strived to be that perfection in every single detail, which drove him to the ground.
Yeah.
And it was a heartfelt outpour of help me. I feel I'm drowning. It's dark here, but I've got so much light. I've got so much love. I've got so much recognition. But inside I'm empty and I'm tired and I want to let go. I want to be real. I want to talk to my community and say, I love the fact that you love me so much, but I want to tell you I'm not in a good place at the moment. And by telling you that, I also give you permission to recognize it in yourself. If you're either a business person or you're somebody that is starting up yourself and you've not got that confidence, stick with it, because these days don't last.
Yeah, exactly. These days don't last, and we don't have to suffer in silence, because if we share this vulnerability and our anxieties we have with like-minded people, we can even empower ourselves by just doing a mastermind about it and getting a different perspective, because sometimes it really needs just a little hand which will take us off the ground to look on the whole scene we're dealing with, to get a different perspective. And then we can ask ourselves, what are we about to learn here?
Very, very true. I've got a little bit of an article here that I was reading by a gentleman called Chris Myers, who contributed on Forbes. And he actually is talking about people that he's helped and come across. And I've got a little story I'd love to share with the listeners here. This part is called Live to Fight Another Day. Entrepreneurs have to accept the fact that odds are stacked against their success. Boy, don't we know that's true. Most new business ventures fail, and even those that eventually are successful take a long time to get off the ground. Setbacks will outnumber successes, and there's a good chance that most days will be stressful. That's the game we choose to play, and the ability to embrace these realities, it's what makes us an entrepreneur. Still, when challenges pile up, it's easy to feel like the world is ending and that we're failures. I recently had lunch with a good friend who was in the process of shuttering his third startup in 7 years. During our conversation, I reminded him that in his brief career to date, he accomplished more than the vast majority of people do in decades. His pedigree and experience put him in the top 1% of people in his age group, and as a result, his opportunities are vast. Sure, the latest venture didn't work, but he can and will live to fight another day. Wow. He goes on to say, whatever point you are in your life, there's a very good chance that your current endeavor won't be your last. In fact, many of the most successful entrepreneurs in the world hit their stride on their second or third attempt. And a good case scenario here, Frank, is of Mark Cuban.
Mm-hmm.
Before he struck it big by selling his Yahoo business or his business to Yahoo, Cuban had a string of failures. And he was a failed cook, carpenter, and even a waiter. But he learned that it doesn't matter how many times you failed, you only have to be right once.
Yes.
I was an idiot lots of times, and I learned from them all. The lesson here is that there are second, third, and fourth acts in life. And it's important to remember that whenever you encounter failure, it's not a failure for life.
I really love that message, especially when you get the lesson you have to learn from this failure. Then I would even go so far and just reframe it and don't say it's a failure anymore. It's just a lesson.
And all the lessons that we have are towards our journey.
Yes, they contribute.
What I thought was great, Frank, was you said, don't be afraid to get help. We are really fortunate that we have a fantastic support network and we can actually call on them. And sometimes you're really, really fortunate that you have friends and family that will listen to your struggles or lend a hand. But not everyone, as we so know in this business, is that lucky.
Yeah. And I think it's also important to stay humanly connected, because if you ask for help, guess what? You will get help.
Yeah.
You will get unstuck.
Yeah. And I think we need to be able to reach out and get help when you need it. But in this world, it's quite difficult when you want to be recognized and everybody feels the need to be, as Gary Vaynerchuk says, crushing it all the time.
Yeah.
Asking for help can be seen as a sign of weakness, which leads to people simply keeping their difficulties to themselves.
Absolutely, yeah. It is like a secret demon. But I found an article, Jill, on Inc.com written by Jessica Bruder, very, very great article. And she quotes Toby Thomas. He's CEO of Insight Solutions. And this guy says, it's like a man riding a lion. And people think this guy must be brave. But he's only thinking, how the hell did I get on a lion? And how do I keep from getting eaten? I think this really shows what's going on in an entrepreneur's mind.
I mean, we as entrepreneurs, like you and I, Frank, in the entrepreneurial community, this mentality actually needs to change. People should be able to feel free to get help without fear of judgment, fear of being compared, others' opinions. But it is going to take a few brave influences to initiate the change. But we feel it's already there. We know it's already there.
We want to take this forward. I mean, it is important that we show our weakness, that we show our vulnerability. Because, as I said before, this is really the time of the biggest growth. And as soon as you recognize this, there's numerous examples in other entrepreneurial journeys.
Correct.
And these show that when you are weak and when you recognize these as a weakness and see it as it is and find your purpose in this weakness and you focus to get back on your strength quickly, it is the time for biggest growth.
Well, we know a few people in this industry who care about this particular thing very, very deeply.
Oh, yeah.
And now you're going to get the top entrepreneurs actually voicing it and making podcasts and talking about it on their daily shows.
Yeah.
Because it's needed. It is a vital part of the journey. It's not to be swept under a carpet.
Yeah.
There are a few good people out there who want to help. And it's just a matter of having the courage, really, to reach out to them, because the bumps and the setbacks of any entrepreneurial journey are never, ever experienced for the first time. That there's numerous amount of people that understands and wants to say to you, hey, remember, you're not alone.
Yeah.
But I really feel that we've got to keep the challenges in perspective And as Chris Myers says on this Forbes article, which is absolutely exceptional, just live to fight another day. No matter how dark a situation looks, it's never as bad as it seems. But mostly, don't be afraid to get help.
Yeah, exactly. And also, there's another aspect here, because to strengthen your and maintain your mental health, you can also use techniques and reframe failure. Because we both know, Jill, that our subconsciousness cannot differentiate between what's true and what's not true, what's invented, kind of.
That's a very important part of this, because we've got experiences also from our past that unfortunately sometimes we think will determine our future.
Yeah.
And it's breaking those blocks, breaking those barriers, breaking down that continual dialogue of, well, how could this possibly work? We've never done this before. We are alone in this. We've got no references, landmarks. We've got no shores that we can just sit on and say, I know where this is taking me. Been here before. We've been nowhere on this journey before.
Yeah.
The unknown is so frightening, the other side. And yet, as long as we know the why process, the how unfolds itself, but we've still got to trust every step of the way that whatever we suffer, we're not the only ones suffering.
And it won't be forever.
No.
I also would love to pull in the health aspect here, because when you do not take care of your health, you become, also in your business, but not only, it's not restricted to business, but you become less resilient. If you don't get enough sleep, if you don't eat healthy, if you don't exercise, your business and also, your whole life will suffer. And most likely, you can be sure you will develop some kind of deficiency in several areas of your life.
Yeah. And as people listening to this will probably relate, sometimes people can be holding down full-time jobs but so want to work for themselves. And so the day becomes a full-time work, full-on day, where you're out, perhaps 9 to 5 or perhaps 6 till 10.
Yeah.
And you may only have a couple of hours to be putting on a business that you actually want to replace your primary income with. And so therefore your days and nights are going to be just a blur sometimes, a continuous cycle of building things, of creating things. And so, as you so rightly say, if we don't put energy back into our bodies, we can't be in the creative zone. We can't be taking information in. And we are just surviving, almost looking like a zombie and thinking, goodness me, life is passing me by as I look out suddenly and it's light, and I come home suddenly and it's dark.
Yeah.
I don't seem to be experiencing life. We've got to recognize these things, but we've got to understand that our health is so important. Our wealth is in our health. We are nothing without that.
Yeah, that's well said. Yes. And I've been there. I've really experienced how it feels if you don't take care of your body. I was losing weight a lot, and I'm lucky I noticed that.
Yes. And in fact, for me, as we were having this conversation before, sometimes for me, I was actually putting weight on. I was becoming extremely stressed. I was probably eating at the wrong time of night. I wasn't even recognizing what I was eating, to be completely honest with you. It just seemed something there. And I'd probably be working when I was eating, which is the worst thing that you can possibly do.
Yeah.
You're not recognizing what you're eating, so therefore the nutritional value, no matter how amazing it might be on your plate, means absolutely nothing to you or your body, because you don't know even really ingest the nutritional value of it, because you're not being mindful in the moment that you're eating it.
Yeah. And as we discussed before, where does depression normally start?
Yeah.
in your gut system.
In your gut. It's an enzyme in the gut that actually spreads through the central nervous system, the sympathetic. Everything becomes almost like a web.
Yeah.
And as it grows and as it multiplies, it starts constricting, shutting things down, fatigue, absolutely everything, kidneys, you name it, it affects everything. And so a lot of people will try and build several things, but then say, well, actually, it made me sick. Well, it was our approach to it that probably did it. And it was the realization that, you know, I need to give myself 12 to 18 months, perhaps 2 years. So I have to hang on to perhaps my primary position in order to build my secondary position, which hopefully will replace my primary position.
Yeah.
And you have to understand that the way that you figure your day out also has to incorporate somehow something to do with your health, some exercise, some fresh air, good food, enough sleep.
Yes. Very
but
important.
I think we all go the other side of the wall all at once by saying, oh, I'm sure we can do this all at once. But the truth is we can't.
We can't. Yeah. It's absolutely okay to admit that, because in the end, we're only human.
Yes. And I think the vital thing is the more authentic you get with your business and the more people actually see that sometimes you struggle, sometimes you suffer, sometimes like David the other night when I turned on his YouTube, that was a real heartfelt 20 minutes of pain. He went through all his pain points, and yet he's at the peak of his career. He's expected to attend big gigs. He's expected to DJ. He's expected to do astrology reports. He's given away so many, and he's got an influx of them. And he said, I'm not going to be able to fulfill them. I've got to be honest with you. And I thought, wow, fair play to him. And when I read underneath all the YouTube things, everybody just said, we love you for who you are. We love you for your authenticity and real and raw here.
Exactly. And on top, this is very, very inspiring for other entrepreneurs, because, I mean, we are living in a world where we share. So if someone finds a solution that inspires to share that.
Yes. And I think the creative side, like yourself, Frank, I mean, you've got another business, you've got your music side of things, you've got your creative side of things, you've got your technology side of things. For me, I've got my tarot academy, I've got my coaching academy. I'm also doing one-to-one sessions with individuals. We're working together here to create as much value and help putting all these things that we've actually got life experience and strengths and abilities in order that hopefully somebody out there will think, hey, you know, that is actually me. So you're actually saying that what I'm going through, I'm not going through on my own, and I can get through this with help and support, and I can reach out, and I just got to be real about the situation that I'm in and get real with anything to do with your health, because if that fails, no matter what you're doing, it just won't succeed.
Yeah. And one more thing is really important here. Every kind of entrepreneurship has a high risk of failure. But I mean, this is also what carries the huge opportunities here. As Gary Vee said in one of his shows, the opportunities are on steroids at the moment. And that's so rightly said.
Yeah. And I think it was Brené Brown that we absolutely love. And her books, I advise anybody to go on a TED Talk with Brené Brown and have a listen to her. Because she said literally, the ones that are happy being the most uncomfortable are the ones that rise again to success.
Beautiful.
It is such the truth, because when you are that uncomfortable that you have to turn and be motivated towards a direction and don't turn around and go back to the comfort zone. Whatever happens to you then will take you out into another situation, another opportunity, and hopefully you will rise to the occasion and think, I've been here before, I've been in this darkness, and know what it's like, I can face it again, I can get through it again. And when I get through the other side, there will be something brand new waiting for me there.
Yeah, and there will be new momentum coming, taking you off the ground.
Yeah.
There's no question.
Well, Frank, I've really enjoyed this discussion. I know it's a really heavy topic, but I think it's the approach to it. I think it's the knowledge that we have got people that we can reach out to. And if it's not your family, don't beat yourself up about that. Not every family has 4 to 7 to 10 members that are full entrepreneurs and been there or done that. A lot of traditional ways of doing living and making a living, the family will actually look at you and say, I don't understand why you're doing that. There's nothing coming from it yet. Why do you keep giving all your time to something there's no... You and I have been there, Frank.
Yeah. True.
We've got to recognize is that something brand new in this world, and all the techno tools and the things that are actually coming in the next 5 to 10 years will transform your business unrecognizably.
Again, yeah.
And the tools are there and the education is there to make it easier, but the groundwork is where you've really got to get in the dirt. As Gary Vee says, the dirt and the clouds, the dirt has to come first before you can see the clouds.
Yeah, well said.
It's really, really important that when you get down in there, you're not afraid to get your hands dirty. You're in the trenches, you're experiencing, you're getting the failures. You're feeling the pain.
And you have to be real, because in entrepreneurship, you can build a security cushion for yourself, but it could be the next day it's gone. And you just have to acknowledge this. You just have to know that this could happen. So the takeaway from today's podcast is be vulnerable and reach out for help. Take care of your health.
And also, big one, don't be afraid of the negatives and the failures. They are your biggest growth times.
Exactly. Yes.
When you come back from a negative or a knockdown or a failure, you come back stronger because you are prepared. You are more armed than you were before. And a lot of entrepreneurs are a fear of that if they reach out, they're going to fail. If you expect to fail and it happens, that's actually on your side, because the next time it's going to be very, very different.
And ask yourself, what can I learn from this lesson?
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, I really hope that we've managed to help somebody tonight on this vast topic that does affect an awful lot of people out there in business as well as in traditional ways of living. But it's an up and coming thing that more of us now are reinventing ourselves at different age groups in time. And we've all got these strengths and abilities. The young suffer, as they say, or they think they do, because they don't have the experience. When you're young, go out and get the experience because you take the knocks better. It's when you get into a middle and a further on age group that the knocks may be taken more personally. But also you've got the wisdom and the knowledge of age behind you, and you've got the strengths, and you've also got the downfalls that you can grow from. So wherever you are in that age group, this may affect you, but it doesn't define your life, and it certainly doesn't determine your future. Okay, well, I'm going to say love, peace and blessings to all our listeners, and thank you very much indeed. We are beyond grateful for your time spent with us here.
Yeah, we truly are. So this is us signing out from where your safe zone for discovering your true self is created. Spread the love and see you next week, guys.